Good evening. Welcome to Three Skulls Tavern. I'm Matt, your host, and I'm here with another Pitchfork Dev Diary. This one is actually probably the most important Dev Diary I've done so far, depending on how you look at things. Obviously, coming up with a game and putting some flesh on the bones is extremely important, because then otherwise you don't have a game. But I kind of did a soft release of the playtest to people in on my last Dev Diary Live, and also to people on the Discord servers for both this channel and my publishing channel. So people who are basically actively following the game. And it was, I'm saying a soft release because I haven't really talked about it much more on social media. It's literally just, I would say probably like maybe a dozen people who were kind of interested in taking a look. Again, people closely following, and the idea was to get some initial feedback on the document as it stands. And to my surprise, this was on this is on Thursday, before my Thursday stream, and it turns out that a group of friends of mine from other servers and things actually wanted to give the test rules a spin on their Friday night game, so the following night. So that was pretty exciting. I've not actually playtested these rules myself. I've just come up with them. I've done a little bit of playtesting with as I did this on a live stream with the village creation rules, and I did a few scenarios, just rolling some dice, kind of to see how things felt in terms of dice pool sizes. But other than that, I haven't actually tested it myself. Hey, Eric. Yeah. So, that was pretty exciting. Like, literally the day after that I kind of shared the document, I had a group already saying that they wanted to try it out. So that's what's happened. You can see on the screen here, I've got my document on the right. I've got the feedback form on the left, which is 5 pages long. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feedback elements. There are 4 players and a GM. So all of their feedback is in here. And basically what I'm going to be doing, I haven't actually read this at all. I've discussed some of the feedback with Simon, who put the feedback form together on Discord, but I haven't actually read this document yet. I was holding off to do this live on the stream. And the reason for that is because I think this is an extremely important process in any development of a game, if not the most important. You need to playtest your game, and more importantly, you need other people to playtest your game. And you need to look at what they're saying about it and coming back to you with, because it's very easy when you're running your own game for you to take some things for granted, to explain concepts that might be hard for other people to wrap their heads around because you've done it yourself. So this is an extremely important step, and I wanted to look at this feedback, warts and all, live, so that people can see how the process works. Yeah. I'm a tiny titchy bit nervous here. Hey, Simon. But yeah, I've already had some initial feedback, so I know it wasn't all bad. There are definitely some things to improve, and this is basically what I'm going to be going through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through. I have a section here on my playtest document where I've got playtest feedback, and basically as feedback comes in, I'm going to summarize it in my own words here in the document at the top. Then I'm going to look through those bullets after I've written it down to summarize. I'm then going to read through my bullets to see the summaries again, and I'm going to try and think about whether I think that's important feedback that I want to implement, because not necessarily all feedback should be implemented, and B, if it does need to be implemented, how is it best to implement that in the game. So yeah, and then after I've done that, after I've implemented feedback, I'm going to be up-revving the playtest document to version 0.3. Just so I'm aware, this is a line in the sand. Version 0.2 is the game prior to feedback coming back, prior to it being played, and version 0.3 will be, the game after it's been played once, after it's been, the tires have been kicked to see if the doors fall off, that sort of thing. Okay, right. So, just having a look here at the comments. Hi, Magnus. So, right, let's get started. So looking over at the Pitchfork from Simon's the first one on the list. Simon was a player, but he's the one who pulled the feedback together, so naturally he gets top slot here. First bit of feedback. The trauma table is too severe and weighted. Consider making it a D66 table. This is good feedback. I did think about this when I was creating it, that it was weighted around the 7 entry being a 2D6 table. And on either side of it, we had things like broken arms and... yeah, like, you're going to be rolling 7s the majority of the time, 6 to 8 a huge amount of the time, almost like 50% of the time. And most of the results there are broken limbs. So it is pretty harsh. And there's some other things tying into this, I know, so this all kind of links together. But the first bit of feedback here is trauma tables weighted far too harshly. And then consider D66. Okay, next one. Characters are very frail, especially older characters. Simon played an old character. Consider using NPC stats for PCs. This is the summarized NPC stats, I assume. Probably not going to do that. But anyway, higher vitality and stability makes more sense to me, partly from a pure mechanics perspective, but also because I disagree that commoners would be this frail and weak-minded. The average peasant is pretty tough. I tend to agree. I live in the countryside. I'm not calling my extended relatives peasants, but they kind of are farmers, and they are very, very tough people, like tougher than anyone else. So I would argue, I would probably say as well that I agree, Simon. I think of all of the expansions I'm planning on releasing for this game, you know, the rural one, this one, the urban one, the criminal, the mercenary one, this one is probably going to should feature tougher characters than any of the other ones, because people who are out working outdoors doing manual things all day long are going to be pretty tough. So yeah, we're going to put here trauma values too low. Peasants should be tougher. Consider introducing career skills to each career to broaden the skill set, as they currently feel very limited. Dig into the idea of narrative tags more if you wish. I like that idea a lot. Okay, consider... I mean, Simon, you're here in the chat. What do you mean by... can you just quickly explain what you mean by narrative tags? So consider career skills. I know what this means because I did have this in a previous version of this playtest. And more focused skills. Okay. The social rules feel lacking. Yep, I agree. I feel the community should matter more in a mechanical way. Completely agree, but we'll put that in there as feedback. Expand social rules and include the community in them. That might even be maybe the next step. Dev diary. Or the one after that. Need some water. Whew. Okay, I'm going to remove this. This is kind of what I put in here. Consider career skills and more focus skills. That's actually this next comment here. Is skills feel convoluted and mixed up. Make them broader. Yeah. I agree that Doom should be worked at to make it more interesting. Make Doom more interesting. Yep. All good feedback. Okay, and that was Simon. So, yeah, the basic feedback here is that skills being such a huge list feel really spread out, that if you don't have... And because they're so specific, they're like almost like skill specializations, a lot of them, that if you don't have the skill, you're not going to get a bonus to that. But peasants are probably a little bit more broadly capable. So if we had a smaller skill list and not this broad open-ended thing, then people would generally be a little bit more capable. That's kind of important, tied with the fact that the attributes, which I'm calling characteristics here, are much more limited than in the normal Year Zero games. So having skills that kind of only go up to 3 and having lower attributes and no talents does mean that... Oh, and advantage only gives a single die. It doesn't give you +2 or +3. So really the dice pools are capped a lot more. I almost put in a rule to say that the maximum dice size in this game should always be 10. If you should be rolling more than 10 dice, then you can't. You should only ever have 10. But then there was an outlier where you could theoretically have 11 dice, and I didn't want to. I just kind of just left it out. Like, if you have 11 dice, you have 11 dice. No big deal. If that basically is saying you've got everything stacked in your favor. Okay, I'm going to quickly look over the chat for what Simon's got back to me here. Allowing them to build up interpretation and creative use. That is why I like career skills, as they are very broad and can be used very creatively, instead of very defined skills such as Mithras. Yeah, okay. Hi, Gruldfar. So, Simon is... I don't mean by the narrative tag still, but, I mean, I get the intention, I get the feedback of what you're talking about. Yeah, so you mean allowing skills to be up to interpretation and creative use, so making them broader. I mean, there's almost an argument here to use something like Star Trek Adventures skills, which are, I can't remember the word for it there, but the idea is that you have like 6 attributes and 6 skills, which are broad areas, and you can mix and match them all together to get what you want. I actually tried that with my mouse game that I played, when was that? Christmas time, so not too long ago, so less than a year ago. But it didn't feel, I didn't actually, maybe it's because I didn't have the right skill set necessarily, but it felt really janky to me, and I wasn't a huge fan. So I'm much more a fan of actually listing out skills that do specific things, and yeah, tightening the list up so we're looking more at like something like 20 maybe. I've got a very good idea how I can implement that, but yeah, we'll get there. And career skills, I mean, definitely if I'm tightening up the skills, I can do career skills again. That's good feedback. All right, why is Eric's at 14 point? So first thing I did when I got this feedback form was I made all the fonts match because they were all different fonts, and that really triggers me. Being a layout junkie, it's one of my OCD areas. Is everything has to look symmetrical. Right. It even bothers me that we've got bullets here, numbered lists here, dashed list here. Anyway, all good. Rodders now. Rodders says skills are too specific and are unlikely to come up in a game often. For example, fishing, running, pottery. Making running into athletics would be more useful. Okay, so I think characters would need to have more skills available or make skills more general. So same thing here, which is skills feel convoluted and mixed up. Make them broader. Or give them more. I don't want to give them more. I wanted to keep this more. This is like meant to be a rules-like game. And I think the answer isn't to put more skills in and to give people more skill points. The answer is to tighten the skill list down and make people more broadly useful. Trauma should be less severe and probably not weighted. Okay, same feedback there. Chances of a critical are far too high. Okay, so that's... I'm going to add that to here. Chances for critical... Oh, in fact, this is basically... Peasants should be tougher. This ties to that one there, when that is that criticals occur far too often. These are all tied together. Like, making a couple of small changes will fix a lot of this. So that's good. Chances of a critical far too high. Doom feels like a negative feedback loop. Characters have low enough success chances as is. Make Doom more interesting. Doom feels like a negative feedback loop. Characters, Jesus, Eric, I don't know what you're using the Doom for. That's all good. Characters struggle as is. If the focus is on village play, it could be benefit from more social... Okay, yep, same feedback there from Simon. Okay, Eric, 14 point... Okay, so he's given me a solution already. 7 felt too low. Before I read this, I was talking with Simon about the trauma values, and I suggested that... I even said in a previous version, my very first edition of Pitchfork, which had vitality and stability, I was actually using 14 as the starting value. but I have a feeling that might be a little bit too high, so I'm still debating how I'm going to do that. I like having the default as being an odd number, so I might start with 13. And then, obviously, if you go for an adult, you've got 12 to play with, and then if you go down again, then you've got 11. So we'll play around with those numbers, but basically the same feedback there. Perhaps do NPCs... Okay, so now Eric was a GM, so he's looking at this from a slightly different perspective, the NPCs now. NPC skills as how competent are they at what they do? 5 or 6 is generally competent, then base other skills around that. I thought I did that, though. Let me have a look. Five or 6 is generally competent. Whereas I'm saying... I mean, if you're saying generally competent, you're meaning, like, better than average, right? Whereas I'm saying here 3 dice. So, okay. I'm not really sure what you're meaning here. So, base other skills on that. So, what are they competent? How competent are they at what they do? So... Currently an NPC, I think I've got a sample NPC written in here somewhere. Oh, Jesus, I didn't even do that. Right. Here. Bandit Leader 3. So, I've given him a good... Said 3 is good. So maybe I need to just play with these values a bit. Okay, that's fine. We'll put that in as feedback. Yep. So the feedback is that NPC stats are on the low side. Okay. Consider core... Okay, I get what you're saying now. Consider core competency level. So, Bandit Leader 6. Or we can say Bandit Leader 5, for example. Career skills would be +1 from that. Outliers, -1. Yeah, I get it. Well, what you're saying is, like, he's a bandit leader, so anything that has to, and his kind of level is 6. So if he's doing anything that a typical bandit leader would be good at, like commanding his bandits around, he should be rolling 6 dice, 5 + 1. If he's trying to do anything that's outside of his normal capability levels, he might only be rolling 3 or 4 dice, or 4 dice, we're saying here. And if it's something that you could argue, yeah, okay, it's something that he probably could do without too much, like an athletics check, for example, he would just use the 5 dice. So that's like the core. And if it's outside, if it's an outlier, it'd be -1. If it's something that's typical to his career, it'd be +1. I like that. It'll be easier to stat up NPCs. That's actually a much quicker way of doing things. So that's a really good tip. Guidelines on using Doom for climatic scenes. Oh, yeah. I'll put this up here with Doom. Guidelines for using Doom in climatic scenes. I always say climatic, but it's climactic. It's a climax. Climactic scenes. Isn't particularly friendly to one-shots with the emphasis on the village. Would probably shine more in campaign play. Village creation itself really should have its own dedicated session. I'm sure that's intended. Okay. Doesn't feel well suited to one-shots. One-shits. Especially because of village creation. Yeah, that's true. Alright. Charles next. The village skill feels highly constrained and arbitrary. Why does everyone in the village... There is no village skill, Charles. That must have been a house rule that Eric did. Somebody did suggest doing... Oh, I did write it in briefly. I thought it was a good idea. I added it in briefly, and then after about an hour, I took it back out. So it could have been that they grabbed the test with it. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm not even going to put it in the feedback. Yeah, Simon convinced me to do a village skill. I put it in, and then he probably told you, well, oh, the village skill is in, go grab it. And then I thought about it like an hour later. I took it back out and said, no, actually, I think if you want to do it as a house rule, go for it, but I don't think I'm going to put it in the core rules. I'm blaming everything on Simon, of course, because he's here in chat. In fact, you're all here in chat. Hi, Rodders. Yeah, it's out, though. So I'm going to put it in here anyway. Village skill, arbitrary. Yep, that's fine. It's out anyway. The skill harvest feels very wrong. Most villagers will help with the harvest, but their job... Yeah, so I have a problem with harvest as well. In that, when I was putting it in, I was basically felt like, why am I putting a skill in for harvest? What are you going to actually roll for that? Like, it's completely pointless, right? But I left it in anyway because I was in a rush and I was trying to put stuff down, and I think I was going off of like a Wolfrip first edition list, which I think had like agriculture or something in it. Agriculture might make more sense from a sort of like logic based type of role. Simon did reconsider. I had a chat with Simon. He was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." So Simon's blameless here. Yeah, yep. And Eric's just confirming it was a very quick turnaround. They were reading the rules, getting ready to play it. So they were giving me some really focused feedback and clarification of the rules before they played. I was trying to swivel and respond and even tweak some things for them very specifically. And then at the end, like some of these decisions I was making, I was actually thinking about it a bit more. Like, okay, let me just take this a little bit more slowly. Maybe not. And that, like, village skill is one of them. It's a kind of a cool little idea. It's a cool house rule, but I don't think should be the default. So that was just a good example. So, right, harvest. Yeah, so harvest will be leaving. Harvest skill feels wrong. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah. Yeah. The harvest skill is meant to be more like, it should be thought of more as like agriculture. It's knowledge of how to do agriculture. It's not just doing labor, which is kind of what you're talking about here, Charles. So yeah. And they do that in Germany too. We get a lot of people from Eastern Europe carted in buses. I live in the countryside where there's a lot of farming. And some crops, for example, asparagus is a regional crop around here. So we grow and export asparagus, white asparagus, all around Europe actually. But it's all grown right around where I live. And they bring, I think they're usually Romanians. They bring a coach full of Romanians in from Romania to do all the manual like harvesting of the asparagus. It's kind of yeah. Anyway, I won't go into the politics and the social element of it, but that's something that happens here too, so I know what you mean. The lethality of the crit tables feels so deadly that I question the rationale that a player would choose to do anything other than acquiesce to the wishes. Okay, so very elaborately saying that same thing up here, yep, which is that it's the trauma tables are too harsh. Not trauma. Well, yeah, it's trauma in general. Giving over whatever they have in the hopes they're not killed feels like better odds than attempting to defend attack. Might be a brutal way to say this, but the damage seems extreme. Yep, not sure what would be a perfect fix, and more playtesting will show if this is a proper problem. As it is 2d6, perhaps exploiting the bell curve more, or even making it 2 to 20 with additions for vitality loss. Yep. That way 5 to 9 are slight injuries, 2 to 4... Yeah, okay, so he's talking about manipulating the bell curve so that the areas you're rolling on are not as... in the middle are not so severe. The outliers are the more severe ones. And if you've taken a big hit, so you add a number to that. It's a bit too much crunch for what I want here, and there's better ways to solve this while still sticking in with a bit more of a year 0 feel. So basically I'm talking about going back to a D66 table. But I probably won't be doing 36 results on it because I want to split this in a similar way to what I have now with having 4 different types of criticals. I quite like that, and I don't feel like I need 36 different entries for that. I think probably having something like 18 will probably be more achievable. And for the playtest, I might only do 12 to start off with. So every 3 there's 36 results, so you know, I'll clump them together in groups of 3. So 11 to 13 14 to 16 would be one result, would be two different results, for example. So I'll probably start with 12 and then maybe intend to do much more in depth and you know, much bigger injury tables for the final version, for example. Okay, so I don't need to add anything from here. I already have a good idea for how to solve this, but he's basically saying the same thing, that it's too lethal, and especially with the bell curve. So the 2d6 is at least the way I've written the 2d6 table, in conjunction with very low trauma values and how trauma rolls work, mean that you're rolling often for a critical and you're getting a critical very often as well. That's not necessarily a bad thing if you look at games like Hardmaster. You get injured very, very quickly as soon as you get hit with things, and that's kind of okay. It's kind of what would happen in a fight. Like, you got to think, if you're peasants and you're going up against somebody who's armed and they're attacking you, you're going to get injured pretty quickly. Like, if somebody's trying to kill you, why wouldn't you get a broken arm or severed arm artery as a peasant not used to fighting very, very quickly? I think I don't really have a problem with that, but I can appreciate it feels very harsh. So I'll have a think we'll talk about this in a bit, but we'll see. I'm kind of on the fence about whether I do D66 or not. Anyway, I said I was going to do this later, so let me just finish going through the playtest feedback. Character creation was fun and interesting, even with aspects missing in the doc. Motivation problems, I like rolling. Okay, cool. Yeah. So there's some good feedback. Thank you. Character creation, fun. Yeah, I'll just leave that in there. I'm planning on doing motivations problems filling in those tables. I just haven't had time. I did not read in any depth the rules and relied on Eric, so any mistakes are 100% him and not my lazy self. Village creation was interesting. I need to run it a few times, but the central concept is solid. But it feels there are some sharp corners that need a sanding or something. I agree, yep. I cannot put my finger on it. Additionally, we did it very asynchronously, and that might have made it feel off in a small way. Right, so if I go up here to my to-do list, I've got a bit here to simplify village creation so it doesn't take a whole session. But I also want to kind of streamline it a bit. I do want to sand off those sharp corners. So I'm going to put that in here. That village creation needs the corners sanding down. Village creation solid, but needs the corners sanding down. Yep, that's cool. That's something I'm planning on doing anyway. Joey. Really like the attributes and the skills. Feels like you can make a character that is more diversified from others compared to standard Year Zero Engine. A few skills seem very specific. Fishing. I was a fisher, and Eric allowed fishing to apply in a case where being a fisher career might be helpful, even though the fishing skill maybe wouldn't. Okay. Yeah, so Eric using careers, like treating career as a skill, which is fine. I think that's something I'm going to add back in anyway, so okay. Not sure how this would look, but a career skill, okay, could cover the cases of things you should be able to do that are related to your career, but would be too specific as a general skill. Yep. Having vitality and stability range from 2 to 5 makes sense because they can be used like other attributes, but it made us feel very squishy. Forbidden Lands has roughly the same amount of health when damage applies to strength, except PCs in Forbidden Lands can pretty effectively defend themselves, so are expected to have armor. Yeah, this is a good point, because you're rolling on these values. So if I have a value, if you have 14 to split between toughness and stability, and you're rolling them anytime you're trying to do some sort of endurance type roll, or to resist fear if you're rolling stability, then you're rolling, theoretically, you could be rolling up to 9 dice. If you're going for like a really stable character. But if I'm doing that, I will probably make it I'll make it very clear that anytime you're making these rolls, you cannot use skills, you cannot use gear, and you cannot use any advantage. So you're basically just rolling what your value is at the time. And therefore, it's a little bit different because when you're looking at just the raw attributes, you can add things like advantage and gear and skills to basically bump up the values that you're rolling, and you won't be able to do that with these trauma characteristics. So I think that'll be okay. But anyway, I don't need to add something in here because he's basically repeating the same thing about basically around the trauma rules. Although he does say he says it makes sense. But yeah, that's fine. Rolling for a crit on every vitality loss was too much. Not sure how you could have a scenario with some danger and also have a campaign. We were all trying to run away and all ended up with physical and mental injuries. Okay, I'm quite happy about that, but that's cool. I understand. Same feedback as others about the criticals. They happen very often and were crippling. Maybe some tiered list of them, so you start by getting minor injuries, or linear list of injuries with many more that are superficial or more temporarily debilitating. Yep. Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much, first of all, for both playing and providing the very in-depth feedback. We've got a lot of detail here, a lot of agreement as well, so that's also helpful that I'm not seeing, like, feedback where some people are saying one thing and some people are saying the polar opposite. It all seems to be pretty consistent, which is cool. I'm just going to look at the chat very quickly to see if there's anything I'm missing. Yeah, village skills I'm not going to be putting in. Yeah, so village's main production as a tag, so that's basically the thing that you have in abundance, is worth the GM considering. It's meant to be written on the map, and the map is meant to be like a centerpiece of the table while you're playing. So these things should be... The idea is that, again, I'm basing a lot of this on a game called The Quiet Year, and The Quiet Year is... The whole game is focused around the map. Everything is focused around the map. And I might be taking that for granted a little bit. That's how it works. And I can probably make it a bit more clear in the text that you should be looking at the things like the community and the village should be kept in the center of the table, whatever that means. And it should be a reminder for everybody, like, this is where you are. This is your village. These are the people in your village and that sort of thing. Even as you're adventuring and doing other things. So. Yeah, I think maybe even putting... one way that I could approach this is I could put a little section at the bottom of the character sheet where it has the information about the village. So it's even like there as a reminder for every character on their character sheet. What's my village name? What's the resource that's in abundance? What's the resource that's scarce? What's the name of the ruler? I don't know, little things like that. Like, I just put little bits in there. So it's just a little bit there if you need to look at it to get an idea. It's there. I'm also planning on doing GM sheets, and the GM sheets will be basically templated. And they're like worksheets, basically. So it'll have a list of names down one side. You'll be putting reminders for things like the village and stuff like that. That'll be in another prominent place where you can see you can see it. Like, the GM will have a little cheat sheet to have in front of them where it's going to say, like, here's some stuff about the village. Here's a list of names if you need them. And then I'll have prompts to do with like the rumors that are going on, the threats for the village, some like scenario ideas, all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of looking at things like Alas for the Awful Sea, which has some really good tools for that, and planning on doing something similar. So we'll get there. Yeah, so Rodders is making a point that this is one case where too much realism will take the fun out of it. I was talking about trauma, feeling realistic where you're getting these injuries. And that's what I was originally going for, but I agree. And this is the overwhelming feedback from everyone is that it's way too brutal. And you're not having fun in a game if you're basically like, as soon as combat starts, you're dead. Or you're severely maimed, right? Unless that's meant to be a game where it's meant to be extremely realistic and intended for one-shots, maybe. But I mean, the whole game is talking about campaign play where you're spending a lot of time making this village, and then you start playing. Like, if you've spent all this time on a village and you play for a one-shot, it's kind of like, why do we do all that? It's gone. We're done. We played the one-shot. It's finished. Like, all that time we spent on that village, this really interesting village with all this stuff happening in it, is now kind of by the by. So it kind of needs... The whole idea is that it's got this campaign framework to it, and therefore characters need to be a little bit more capable. And that's fine. I can still make it a deadly game, much more deadly than like Forbidden Lands, for example, which was mentioned before. The trauma roll will already be supporting that, where you're rolling every time you take damage, you roll to see if you've taken trauma. I just need those values to be higher, and that'll kind of solve it. 14 to split is much closer to Coriolis. Yeah, so let me just talk around the values in other games. In other games, we're talking about Coriolis, we're talking about Forbidden Lands, for example. The number of trauma skills are basically identical to the number of attribute points you have. So if you think about Forbidden Lands, your attribute value is your trauma value. So whatever, however many attribute points you have, that's how many trauma points you have. In Coriolis, it's strength plus agility for hit points, and it's wits plus empathy for your mind points. So again, it's exactly linked to however many attributes you start off with. And that is why I started with 14 as the base number in the very first version of Pitchfork, because that is kind of the default for the Year Zero engine games. But then I ended up tweaking it because I did, and I thought it was too high. But yeah, we'll figure it out. I think we'll figure out what I'm gonna go with. I think 14 might be a little bit too high here, but certainly something like 13 could be the right number. Where 8 could be the highest number you could assign to it, 3 would be the lowest maybe. So if you wanted to, well, if it was 8, then it would be 8 and 5, I guess. You've got 13. Yeah, I'll think about that. We'll think about it. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and quick village creation for one-shots would be cool. Just a few questions for context. I agree. In fact, I'm going to add this in here as well. Consider quick village creation for one-shots. For one-shots, cons, etc. Okay, all right. We've got our feedback. We've got our feedback written down. And now it's time to look at it, to move some of this from the playtest feedback into the to-do list. And some of it I can even do. I'm going to do that first. I'm going to go through and I'm going to start actually implementing it. So, first thing to do is we'll type in a new section here and call it playtest feedback implementation. Okay. So, we're going to increase trauma values. 13. There we go. Just trying to remember the keyboard shortcut. Criticals occur far too often. That'll sort that out, hopefully. So now we need to think about this weighting. So scrub the trauma table, the injury, the trauma tables, I'll call them. Perhaps D66 or different weightings. Hey, Harry. Yeah, so old characters having less trauma totals is fine. I am planning on still keeping that. I'm not going to change that. So you'll start with something like 13. If you're playing an adult character, you'll have 12, and if you're an old character, you'll have 11. That seems okay to me. Like if you're starting with an old character and you've got 11 points to play with, like one of them will be, if you want to keep it even-ish, 6 and 5. I'm really happy with that as a starting value. It's very different to 3 and 2, right? It's more than double. So yeah, cool. So I think 13 is when we're doing the next playtesting. I think 14 for me is just a bit too high. I want to keep the numbers. I want to keep an odd number here so that you're forced to consider, for young and for old characters, at least for 2 of the 3 options, you're forced to consider one being higher than the other. For adult characters, which in all likelihood is more likely to be everyone, you can go for like an even split. You could go with 6 and 6 if you wanted to, but I kind of like having the odd number to start. Having 13, which is obviously an unlucky number in a lot of cultures, also just kind of ties in with the whole doom feeling. Like these peasants are not lucky; they weren't born in a lucky position in life, and having the number 13 in there just kind of reinforces it for me a little bit. Was the number 13, was that a Viking thing as well, or like a like an Old Norse thing with it being an unlucky number? I think I remember reading about that somewhere. Minnesota Vikings. Oh no, that's not the wrong. It's the wrong ones. I know 9 is the big number for in the Norse mythology. 13 doesn't say anything here. Looks like. Nope. So never mind. Anyway, it's just like I get focused on numbers because I did a maths degree, so I quite like numbers sometimes. It doesn't matter. Whatever. Okay. So trauma. We'll have a look at the trauma tables. Consider what to do about them. Career skills. So skills is the next thing. Tighten up. Skill lists, and include career skills. So this is where I wouldn't have a harvest skill, because if you're a farmer, you'd have a farming skill. Anything relating to farming, you would have a skill relating to that as a skill. So we'll do that one here. Consider career skills, and the 2 below it, which is this one. I agree with that. I think I want to try that. So expand social rules. I'm just going to copy this because that's effectively exactly what I want to do. Make Doom more interesting. So Doom needs a big scrub. So Doom, make Doom more interesting, and so expand Doom to make it more interesting and more central to the assorted systems. Also consider ways to not make it feel so harsh. Now, I think this is the problem, is when you have this trauma system like I had in the previous playtest, in this playtest, you're getting injured very easily, very quickly, and that feels harsh enough already. Having Doom on top of that feels overly harsh. So I think it's okay for that Doom to be there, and Doom to be this thing that's kind of hanging over your head, and you've got this karma thing coming into play, and it's something I really want to keep, and I want it to feel negative because it's reinforcing that this world is not fair. You're a commoner in a world that's weighted to keep you in your place. And therefore, there should be this sort of tension there that when you're doing things, when you're doing certain things, like there's going to be some fallback coming back. And I really like that concept. I really want to keep that. But yeah, these are all interconnected, right? By having it so harsh with trauma, it basically makes the game really depressing, really fucking depressing. Like, okay, the world is out to crush me. This doom is overpowering. Anytime I re-roll, I'm giving Doom to the GM, but I have to re-roll often because shit, I'm terrible at things, and I'm also going to get injured really badly. So I don't want to get injured, so I need to re-roll to make sure I pass, whatever, all this sort of stuff. So I can see how it's all tied together. But yeah. I'm not sure how Coriolis has more dynamic darkness points, because I basically copied it almost identically from Coriolis. So I would question that a little bit. More interesting, more dynamic. Make it more dynamic. To make it more dynamic, interesting. Maybe also less harsh. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Doom. And I've said a sorted system. I'm including not just climatic scenes, but it needs to be in other systems as well. I need to provide guidance for all of them, really. So that's fine. I won't forget about that. NPC stats. Okay, so overhaul NPCs to include a competency level, which their career feeds off of. All right, quick implement quick. WhatsApp, you need to be quiet. Mute. Implement quick village creation. Sand the corners of full village creation. I have a lot of ideas for village creation, making it a little bit more making it more slick. But I still want to keep a lot of the depth that's currently in there. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, I definitely need to come up with a quick thing as well. That's fine, we'll do that. Village skill, I've got rid of that. Harvest skill, we're gonna deal with. Character creation was fun, that's good, but I don't need to implement anything for that. Village creation is solid, needs corner sanding, I've done that. And consider quick village, yeah. So we've got everything implemented. So I'm just gonna delete. In fact, I'm gonna cross this off first, like this. I am going to go up to File. Oh, one other thing to put in here, feedback. Haha, it wasn't in the document. Look at slings. Look at the stats for slings and make them less shite. Okay. So I'm gonna go here to version history. I'm going to name this current version, and I'm going to name it as Pitchfork version 0.2 feedback noted. Playtest feedback noted. Save. So I'll have the playtest feedback is there. I can read it. I have crossed it off. I've implemented it here in the feedback implementation section, but now I'm going to delete it. I'm going to delete this section here. I want to keep a record of it in case I want to come back to it, and I've done that. So, okay. Now we can start implementing some of this stuff. Yeah, so I think Coriolis, the Doom in Coriolis feels better because there's a lot. It's much more. There's a lot more fluff in Coriolis. It is very much more tied to the setting, but mechanically, there's. In fact, I think I've probably put a little bit more here with the Doom than there's in Darkness Points in terms of how it's collected and things. The difference with Coriolis is that by spending time out in the dark between the stars, you will gather. Doom will naturally. Darkness points will be accrued just by being out in the dark between the stars. So there are times when it can be collected outside of what I've got here. So yeah, I think I need to spend more time on Doom anyway. But in terms of how it implements with the rules, etc., like how the GM spends it and stuff, is very, very little difference. Yeah, so the village creation core should be in depth. A quick version would be excellent for one-shots, but it doesn't do it for camp. No, of course not. I'm planning on doing two versions. There will be a light version for one-shots, and I'll make that very specific. Like, this game, if you're going to be playing for more than one session, do not skip this step. Do the full village creation, because it's the core of what this game is all about. Absolutely. Yeah, Ibram and Simon disagreeing about slings. That's fine. Sorry, Eric. I'm gonna completely overrule you here. Slings will be getting a slight boost, so you heard it here first. If I'm gonna do it right now. Make it canon. So we're gonna jump down to equipment, weapon stats. I think I might have already done it too. I have. Yeah. So, weapon. These previously looked like this. It was no bonus on the sling like that. Staff sling was like this. Short bow was like this. I'll put it back to how it was, and that's basically how it looked. So this was how it was when you play tested it, right? By the way, I'll just get the link to this again in case people do want to. Well, in fact, I've got a saved hyperlink for it. Let me put that in here. If you do want to open this again, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. So it's 3skulls.tv/pitchfork -playtest. I think that's the right one. Just click on it once. Yep. Great. I'm going to rename this as well to version 0.3 because I'm going to start implementing this feedback. All right. Where was I? Equipment. Equipment, weapon stats. Okay. So, I mean, the thing with this right now is a sling will do as much damage as throwing a rock at somebody with your hand. That's not right. Because that is effectively what an improvised weapon is throwing a rock at somebody. A sling will it'll definitely be better than throwing a rock at someone, or anything like that. So adding a bonus to it means that you're going to be more accurate to hit. It also gives you another dice potentially to get an extra 6 to do more damage, etc. But I think just adding the 1 in there is probably enough. That takes it up to the level of a shorthand weapon, which would be like a dagger, in terms of deadliness. I think that's okay. Then with the staff sling, I was thinking I didn't want to give it an extra bonus to make it more accurate necessarily, but it does do more power because by swinging it on the staff, you get more range. You basically can launch a sling stone much further, which also means if you're hitting somebody at the same range with a normal sling, you'll do it with more power as well. So for that one, I wanted to make it do a little bit more damage, right? And then it has the staff sling has the same stats as a short bow, which also doesn't quite feel right to me. And I wanted to look at, so I think what I did here is I made the bows by default have a bonus of 2 because you can be more accurate. You're going to be more likely to hit with them when you're getting 2 dice to roll. But I don't want to drop the damage down to 1 because I don't think that's accurate either. I think it should stay with 2 and 2. Which then means what happens with the longbow. I want to keep some differentiation here with the matchlock, for example. The matchlock being a matchlock rifle, basically. I'm renaming this from Arquebus, which was the one I was originally going to be going with. Anyway, just because that's... Yeah, matchlock is exactly... Like, that is a type of matchlock weapon, the Arquebus. And I like the name matchlock fits better with terms like sledgehammer and pitchfork. And then having matchlock also works well. Matchlock also, there's no product on TTRPG called Matchlock. I've looked it up, so that also fits in nicely. So we're going with Matchlock. But that has a bonus of 2, and has a damage of 3, right? Whereas a crossbow has a bonus of 1, and it has a damage of 3. This crossbow stat, by the way, is taken straight out of Forbidden Lands, and I kind of agree with that. I quite like that it punches really hard, but it's not necessarily... Like... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's an argument to be made that it should have a higher bonus as well. But I like that because it kind of balances the crossbow a little bit. And the matchlock has a higher bonus value. I'm not even sure. I'm going to stick with these, but again, I don't expect any peasants in Pitchfork to get their hands on a matchlock rifle. That's really just there to show like how these things move, not necessarily because they're intended to be used in this game. Yeah, I mean, longbow should be rare. I agree. So I mean, the question is, how do I? I mean, I could do a longbow as having a bonus of 3, but I think I've stated earlier that the maximum bonus you can get is a 2. Some weapons are so effective that they get 2 bonus dice. So really, I mean, it kind of... I'm not even sure. Maybe I should just keep this short bow at B1, D2. I mean, people will be saying, well, what's the point of having a short bow when a staff sling is a quarter of the price, because there are people who think like that. Like, yeah. It's a good question. Like, having a staff sling is a very good, in my opinion, a very good weapon for a peasant to have. It requires a lot less maintenance than a bow. It requires a lot less training in terms of like physical strength to draw and fire it, and they can be very, very effective. So, yeah. I don't want to do bonuses of 3. I don't do. I'm trying to keep the dice pool sizes down, and that's why I'm still pretty adamant on keeping these like this. Maximum 2 bonus dice, and damage goes up to a maximum of 3. So the matchlock effectively is maximum. Like, it does maximum. You get the maximum bonus with it. Maybe I'll lower that to a B1, D3. So a matchlock and a crossbow are the same. No. Oh yeah, I wanted to do that anyway. I wanted to do this as, oh yeah, that is a good point, right? Simplify bows into just having bows and have the B2, D2, like that. I don't know. I mean, I could just call it. I could just call it a bow. And if people start like and freaking out, I'll put the cost between the two. Well, no, keep longbows as a different thing. Call this a hunting bow. And we'll do it at B2, D2. And a longbow. The big difference between these is, I mean, if I was to change this to B1, B2, like the B1, D2 like this, like the one thing I do want to keep is I do intend to do longbows in future. I could take it out, but what's the point of having matchlock here? Matchlock is even more rare than a longbow would be. And crossbows as well. Like they're very expensive, and yeah. I want to keep it in here for now just to see what the numbers look like. That's really why they're here. I will probably take them out of the supplement completely. I might take them out of the supplement completely when I finish it off. But yeah, I haven't really thought about that far ahead about how I'm gonna do all the equipment in this. So that's something I still need to do. That's true. That's true. It was a very kind of Western English thing, the longbow. I'm just wondering how you would... The question is, though, if you had an English longbow, how would you stat it out in this game, right? And if we look at Forbidden Lands as an example, I'm going to open Forbidden Lands right now. Oh, what is Adobe doing right now? Go away. Weapons. Right, we've got these here. We have a sling doing 1 and 1. We have a short bow doing 2 bonus, so 2 and 1. We have a long bow doing 2 and 1. It just goes further. So I could do that. Crossbows do 1 bonus, but they do 2 or 3 damage. I like the 3 damage a lot more by not splitting those crossbows out. So I think we'll just do that. I think we'll stick with that. We'll do 1 and 2. Staff sling. I'll do 2 and 2. I mean, and they'll just basically one has longer range. Easy peasy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean... Oh, armor piercing. I mean, it's as easy to do as doing this, right? It's as easy to do as this. Armor piercing 1. Matchlock. Armor piercing 3. Or I could do this as 2, right? We could have the longbow in there, which would look like this. Longbow costs 8 shillings, and I might even make it more expensive. It has armor piercing of 1. Right? There we go. We got armor piercing, and that differentiates them, right? It's an easy mechanic though, right? Because by just doing it like this, I just need to put a simple line in where it's combat related with ranged combat and just say, if a weapon has armor piercing, the value is the number of is the amount of armor that you ignore, because the armor has like every armor has armor rating either 1, 2, or 3. It's actually right down here, armor rating 1, 2, and 3, and it gives you a bonus to your trauma roll. So you're going to be more likely to be taking trauma if your armor isn't being as effective. So if you're being hit by a longbow arrow, it's going to be possibly ignoring some of your armor. Or by hit by a crossbow, for example, it's going to, like if you're wearing medium armor, a chainmail shirt, that crossbow bolt is going to punch right through it. If you're wearing heavy armor, which would be like a breastplate, like plate armor, then I don't actually know if crossbow bolts can go through plate, but I know that Matchlock Arquebus, they shoot these really big like balls. I don't know what they're called actually, the bullets that they shoot, the balls, but they are extremely deadly. Anyway, and I mean, it was gunpowder is what ruled, like when gunpowder weapons were invented, that's when heavy armor stopped being a thing in warfare, because yeah. You're both agreeing, right? Okay, cool. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna put armor piercing in here. All right, that's the thing now, I guess. So I'm gonna leave it in there for now. Also, I'm gonna leave it in because the other thing, this is a thing I forgot to mention. Some of the NPCs might have some of these weapons that the peasants wouldn't have their hands on. Therefore, I want to keep the stats in there in case the GM wants to use one of them, or the GM wants to get an idea of how to balance weapons that aren't listed, and just say, okay, I want to have somebody carrying a falchion, or falchion, however you pronounce that. I think it's falchion with like a hard K sound. That's how I say it anyway. Let's look at the list. Okay, it should be like this, or they have whatever. Like here's just a list of a bunch of different things that you can kind of figure out. Especially also because there's nobles, and it might be that the noble attacks somebody, like because they're trespassing or something. The noble is going to have access to, or the ruler, I should say, is going to have access to a lot of equipment that the peasants never would. So, yeah. All right. Okay. So that was a long time to talk about slings. Where was I? So we're gonna do that. Look at the slings. So this is done now. All right, let's look at the starting trauma values. Let's sort out trauma, because that's the big thing here, right? That's the big thing he's fixing. Characteristics. And this is where I need to split it off here, right? So I'm going to talk about trauma as the next thing. I'm going to call it trauma. I'm going to set it as a level 2 header. So we're not even calling them primary characteristics. We're just calling them characteristics now. Trauma. 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 The 2 types of trauma can be rolled like characteristics, but they are not combined with skills, gear, or advantage, and as a result have a higher range of values between going up to a maximum of 8. So I'm just making a statement here. Trauma can never be higher than 8. Which I'm happy with. So that means if you're having the full 13 as a youth, the highest you could weight one would be 8 and the other one would be 5. That seems okay to me. Alright. So let's go down then to character creation. Magnus is getting busy. Good, thank you. Character creation, secondary characteristics. We're going to call this step 2 trauma. Distribute 13 points between vitality and stability, however you wish. No value can be higher than 8. Let me look at formative events because, or the age thing. See what I mentioned in here. One of your trauma values by 1. You may choose which. And decrease. You may choose which. Okay, and I've said here, reduce either vitality or stability by 1. Okay, so that all makes sense. Let me do a quick search for secondary. Good. That was the only reference to secondary characteristics that I'm easily finding. I'll need to go through and do a full pass on this later. But yeah, okay. So that's that one. That's that feedback. I've now increased it to 13. Oh, did I put 14 in there? I think I might have put 14 in there. No, 13. Okay, good. Yeah. Hard C. Okay, so it is Falcon. Thank you. No, Simon, that's cool. That's exactly what I remember as well. I can't remember where I remember hearing or reading that, but that the heavy armor was so effective because it was so hard to penetrate it with crossbows. But that once gunpowder weapons were brought to more prominence, that they kind of ruled them. You were just basically really heavy and you got tired really quickly, and still somebody with an arquebus or a matchlock, rifle would basically punch a hole right through your armor and kill you anyway. So much better to be more mobile and therefore kind of like stop being a thing. So cool. All right. So tighten up the skill list. I'm gonna ignore the trauma tables for now. I'm gonna come back to that. I want to look at the skills because this is the other big thing that I think makes a big difference to how the game feels. So we're gonna look at here at skills. This is all good. I'm not gonna tie them to characteristics. That's all good. No descriptions is also good, I think. If a skill can be applied, add a number of dice. Creative use of skills is encouraged. I need to talk about career skills. In addition to the list below, each career comes with a career skill, which should be named. I'll just call that. Which can be used in place of a general skill. If the character, if the career, if the, oh god. If applicable. Let's keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Okie dokie, let's pull up. Oh god, this is gonna get interesting very quickly. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna go to... No, I'm gonna go back in, sorry. I'm gonna go to a previous version. I'm gonna look at my version history here. I'm gonna pull up a version where I had a tighter list of skills. Oh wait, hold on. I've got a spreadsheet with all this stuff. So that's a better place to look. Pitchfork skills? Yeah. Okay, this is a very, very rough as fuck sort of spreadsheet. Let me just pull up. You can see the tabs on this. Oh, you can see the tabs already. That's fine. It's rough. So I've basically just been playing around with different versions for this game for how the skills look. Over time, I haven't really changed. In fact, you look at when I first started working on it. August. Nope. Okay, I thought it was a lot earlier than that. June. So beginning of June. So I've been working on this for a long time. But I've, as I've been adding new sheets, it goes kind of over to the right. This is the current list I'm playing with, which I'm not going to be using anymore. But I will be doing some comparisons here in a second. I did some comparisons with Woofrup, and this is where I had this Pitchfork 2.0. I don't know why I call it 2.0, but yeah. Oh, because this was a change I was potentially going to do. To having 6 like balanced skills, right? So this would have been a bit more like a standard thing. So if you look at, I was gonna have, I'm gonna ignore this because I actually don't like it at all. So here's the list that I had come up with that I was planning to use when there were no attributes. So I think this is probably a really good list because it fits in with stability and vitality. As you can see, we'll see there are no. There's no like endurance skill here or anything like that. I've already got 4 assigned to each of these, in a well-balanced way. So I can basically just pick this up and insert it straight into the game without really worrying about it too much. This was something I spent a lot of time on. I felt like I had come up with a good list, and I think I'm happy to just kind of leave it like that, or to go back and use it. I can ignore the career tags because I'm not actually doing it like this anymore. I'm leaving careers much more open-ended and much more narrative. So yeah, the only thing I need to figure out is Artisan has 5 and I need to remove one of them. So Gossip can go. So they'll have crafting, haggling, might, and sleight of hand. Okay, that works. I was going to actually change some of the terminology here. So crafting becomes tinkering. No, it doesn't. We'll keep it at crafting. Well, here's my thinking with tinkering versus crafting. Crafting is good if you don't have any kind of career skills. And you basically can say, I'm going to attempt to blacksmith, use this sort of blacksmithing skill to forge a sword. Okay, but you're a midwife. How the hell are you doing that? Well, I have a crafting skill of 3. Because crafting includes all sorts of crazy things. And therefore, you can kind of like, rules as written, do these sorts of things. I want the crafting of specialist things like doing pottery, doing blacksmithing, doing carpentry to be a career skill, which we're going to be doing anyway. We're going to be adding that in. And the crafting element, if I leave it at crafting, it's a semantic thing where people are going to associate it with being able to do everything. If I change that word to tinkering, that's basically like talking about jury rigging things. I have a hole in my tunic. I'm gonna try and sew it closed. You should be able to know how to do that. How good you are at doing that is whether you have tinkering. There's a hole in my pot. I'm gonna try and patch it up. Or you're patching things. A fence has fallen down, and you're a farmer and you want to rebuild the fence. You can't necessarily have the skills to build a house, but you can certainly repair a fence, and that's things like that are gonna be tinkering. So that's the best word I've come up with for it. So anyway, I think I'm going to keep it like that. So I'm going to move this to Jesus, they're really hard to move these things. Let's just do here, insert one to the right. I'm going to copy that, paste it, and then we're going to delete that one. There we go. All right. Yeah, cool. General consensus on tinkering being the better choice, and I kind of agree. Yeah, Fenhorn, you're talking about like career skills, right? I'm assuming. When you're talking about narrow, what do you mean by narrow skills? You're talking about the ones I'm listing here? Yeah. They are meant to be outliers. So the idea is that, yeah, Well, that's a good question, because look, I have a fishing... I think I have a fishing skill. I don't have a fishing skill. I'm looking at the fisher, for example. Swimming is a skill they would have. They would have sleight of hand. They would have agility, and they'd have awareness. Let me look at these one by one and just think about... I'm going to add a column in here. We're going to do that, and we're going to think critically about how those career skills would be manifested, and how useful they would be. Are they edge cases, etc.? So, career skill. I'm going to hide this over here because I don't like it being there. I'm not using it anymore. Okay. So the career skill for an artisan would be, I don't know, blacksmithing or smithing, pottery, etc. There's definitely an argument to say you shouldn't need to, if you want to make some pottery, you just spend the time. You shouldn't need to roll for it. So certain careers, it's kind of like, why would you need that? And I can see straight away when I come to the healers, for example, I have a healing skill. What are they going to add? Like, what's having the midwifery career skill? What does that include that healing doesn't? And I mean, it also includes things like, you know, investigation to see what's wrong with the patient, that sort of thing. Yeah. Boating would be this one. And there is nothing to do with... We've got might as a thing. So this is kind of a good question, right? I have them having might because I would have ruled if they are... Let's think of a time when you would use a boatman trying to row and you would ask for a skill challenge. The only time you would do that is when failure would be interesting. So... They're trying to row across a river, and there's something in the river that's attacking them, like I don't know, like a giant crab or something, or whatever. Or there's a monster. There's a monster in the water. It's swimming after them, and the boatman is trying to really, really, you know, row that boat as hard as possible to get away from it. You'd ask for a roll. This is where I would use might as a skill rather than boating as a skill, because I can't think of one boating would be used. So I think I might actually be verging away from using boating as a skill. And I might just say leave tinkering as crafting, but make a little caveat with that and say, for some of these skills, like, you can only attempt to craft certain things if you have the right career for it, right? So just say it like that. You still use the crafting roll, but that crafting roll only relates to your specific career. Because what the hell is the charcoal burner's career skill? Let's think about this a bit further and think about the mercenaries expansion I'm going to be doing. I'm already struggling to think of how I'm going to come up with even like 6 different mercenaries. I can think of about 6, but certainly coming up with 18 mercenary careers is going to be difficult. And what would the career skills be that you would potentially be able to use? Like, you would be able to supplement them. You could completely ignore some of these skills, like melee, the melee-based skills. Just say, well, I'm a mercenary. My career is X. That means I'm good with weapons. I think there's a different way to handle this, and I think the way to handle this is maybe is to have careers ranked themselves, and to maybe allow a career to supplement a skill if it's applicable, and maybe not even have it ranked, and just say, because you're a boatman and you're trying to get away, you can have a +1 to your might, because you know how to work the oars particularly well, right? So it's almost like you get a second advantage if it's relating to your career. That might be a better way of handling it rather than having a whole separate list of skills. Yeah, I knew Eric was going to mention Warlock. I was just waiting for Warlock to come up. Because Warlock is a Wolfrip clone and it uses career skills. You can use your career skill to do something that career would normally do instead of rolling another applicable skill. Right, but it has a downside. And that downside is you can ignore the applicable skill in favor of your career, right? It's a potential way of, within the rules, kind of... I don't know. let's look at a fowler, for example, right? A fowler is somebody who catches birds. If they have a career skill called fowling, bird catching, and they put 3 skills instead of master bird catcher, it kind of is like, well, what weapon are they using? And you could just argue any weapon because, oh, he's specialized in using bows. Okay. It just feels a bit wrong to me that they like what. Why wouldn't you put archery up as the skill? Because you're using, and that is one of the skills you get anyway. What's the point in having the archery skill? Yeah. So I think I'm going to ignore career skill. I'm going to try this thing I've just mentioned, which is that if your career is applicable, it can bolster. You can use it to bolster your skill roll. So in a way, if your career is applicable, you can add a +1 to the roll, regardless at all times. So it's almost like an advantage, but it's outside of advantage. So it's just basically a binary +1 on or off. Like, is it applicable to my career, I can add a +1 to it. Do I want that? I don't know. I think I might not put it in, actually. Oh, God. By having four skills tied to your career, you're already kind of... and I put a lot of thought into making sure this kind of covered most bases. I think we're kind of okay. Right. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Eric suggested that I call it advantage. So you can get advantage from your career, and then it takes up the advantage spot. So yeah, I think that's a good way of kind of solving the dilemma. So rules of play. Building the pool. If anything else can grant an advantage, including career knowledge, help, etc., add a single die. Including specialists, career knowledge. There we go. All right. There we go. All right. I've just put a little line in there, and I've closed that loop. Let's look at the skills then. I'm gonna bring this entire skill list over because I'm really happy with it. I think, can I do transposed pasting in Google Sheets? Transposed. There we go. I just need to rotate it. To like that. There we go. All right, now I've got a nice little list here. The question I had before was, do I need writing as a skill if nobody's got it as a career skill? And I think I do. It's just that nobody here is going to be like none of these relate to writing. But I think I'll keep it in there. So how many do I have here altogether? 23. I've gone through this list so many bloody times. This is the latest list I've played with. I don't have a sorcery skill in there, which was something I had in before because there's no magic. There will be magic potentially in future supplements, but I don't want to handle it necessarily with a skill roll. Maybe I will, and if I do, then I'll add it in as a thing. If an NPC has magic like a monster, it'll be a specific like monster ability, which I'll be covering later. And there aren't really like wizards necessarily in this game, so like coming across NPCs who can use magic isn't really a thing. It's not meant to be anyway. But I mean, this is meant to be a Wolfrup clone, right? So if you're playing Wolfrup, then theoretically there could be wizards from one of the colleges of magic. But not my Wolfrup. Like, this is peasants and stuff, right? And I think a GM could just handle it narratively and just have the wizard cast magic, and it's just a narrative thing that happens, and yeah. In a pinch. There will be magic rules coming eventually, but I have no desire to do them up front because magic. Nah. Alright, so I'm going to do 16 here. Alright, that's good. Let me just have a look at how many I've got on that table. Let's look at my skills table. So I can probably 7 there. So I can do 8, 3 3 columns, 8 rows each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Get rid of these. Delete that. Get rid of them. Oh, too much. First 8 gonna go on here. Second 8 are gonna go right next to it. And the last 7 are gonna go in here. All right. Okie doke. I'm gonna just do a little bit of table faffing. Pat them out a little bit and give them a little indent in 0.1. Nope, that's not what I wanted. How do I give... Oh, yeah, sorry, it's here, isn't it? All right. There we go. All right, so here's my list. Cool. All right. Then I need to go to careers, and I need to... Okay, so upbringing is the next one I need to change. Good, I like to see the comments in there. Let's increase this to a little bit more so you can read it easily. Stealth is definitely a skill still. Here. What else have we got? We've got folklore as a skill. Good. Yep, that's fine. Survival as a skill is the wilderness. It's called. I've called it here. That's fine. We're gonna call this wilderness. Bear heavy load is now called might. I believe. Yep, might. Tinkering is called tinkering, I think, or did I change it back to crafting? No, tinkering is there. And etiquette is no longer etiquette. We have... What am I going to call this instead? So let's have a look here. What I got for the kennel mage, and the kennel page, sorry, and the kennel maid, and the scullion are the kind of servants. They've got stealth. I've got manipulation in here again. Okay, no, that's fine. I remember this. We're gonna go with gossip. Servants gossiping. Playing the stereotypes. Cool. Careers. No change to the careers. I've still got the same careers. I don't need to do anything like that. Okay, so the formative events really needs to change now. First of all, I only have 23 skills. And if I do a full D66 table, I need 36 entries. I'm not going to have that. So I'm tempted to go with... And I wanted to keep this also separate so that you wouldn't... where was it? Let me bring it back up again. So that... if you rolled stealth and upbringing and you rolled a career where you had stealth as one of the options, so as you can see here, stealth, there are 3 options here. You could have the kennel page, the scullion, or the vagabond. They're all good at stealth, at sneaking around. So if you rolled one of them, then you would have 2 in stealth. Then if you rolled for the formative event, you would also get a point in stealth. And because you could be rolling up to 3 times in the formative events table, it's theoretically... I mean, there's kind of an argument to be made for that. If you grew up as an orphan where you're sneaking around all the time, you went into a career where you also were encouraged to be sneaking around all the time, and there was some formative event in your childhood or your adolescence where you had to learn stealth, then yeah, you are probably very, very, very good at stealth, and you've got the maxima. You're a master at stealth at theoretically the age of 18. But yeah. It's funny you mentioned Redwall. My second game I'm kind of planning to do after this, which I've already had some artwork for, is called Mousepunk, which is all about mice. And I was thinking about Pitchfork with anthropomorphic animals, mainly because my wife has said the only time she'll play a role-playing game is if she can play an animal. She's not interested in, like, gritty, you know, games where you're playing a normal person who gets killed or you have to kill people. She wants to play a mouse or whatever. And she would play a mouse in a medieval setting like Mouse Guard or Redwall. And Redwall obviously has much more than just mice. So I did actually think about doing a spin-off of Pitchfork, like as like a one sheet, like 2-page, say, like 2 sides of A4 setting supplement, which would just be, it's still mostly the same rules, but here are a few swaps to make, mainly probably the characteristics, call them something slightly different, so that you can play as animals. And here's some different animal types, and maybe change the upbringing to be species instead. Anyway, that's really far down the line, and it's, yeah, anyway. Mouse fork. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about it because my wife would play it then, but I'm also thinking about, it does seem like when you look at Kickstarter and stuff, that anthropomorphic games are very fucking successful, for some reason. People love it. I mean, I like playing them too. I read Redwall as a kid growing up. I like Mouse Guard. I've got all the comics on my shelf. I do like it as well, but it always takes me a bit by surprise that they're so successful. And people just like, other than Liam, people just generally tend to like furries. Where was I? Jesus. Formative events. So formative events, I kind of have come around to decide that I think it's okay to double up on them. If you would only be master if like the stars have aligned in such a way that your upbringing, your career, and your formative event all basically mean that you know what's happening. And the formative events aren't just in your adolescence. You roll them. They're kind of ideas. If you're an adult, then you're rolling it, and the idea is between the age of 18 and whatever age you are as an adult. Not that 18 isn't an adult, of course. Some other formative event happened, and it's also further changed you. So in that respect, I think we're okay with keeping them and not worrying so much like I did before about having that duplication. So with that in mind, I only have 23. I'm going to go with an 18 entry. Formative events table, which means I'm doubling up on everything. So this becomes 11 to 12. This becomes 13 to 14, etc. And I already have some I can copy the values from, so I don't have to write it all out myself. Somewhere. Or do I? There we go. Look at that. Trappings table. Perfect. Alright, so let's bring it back over to here. We're going to make this a bit bigger like that. And we're going to highlight all these. Paste it in. It's going to do it double, of course. So we're going up to here. And up to here, we're basically going to be removing all these. So what we're going to do is we're going to... I say we, the royal we, of course. Okay. Alright, let me split this out. So I've got the list of skills just over here. Alright, move this over a bit so I can reference it nice and easy. Okay, alright. So acrobatics is not a thing, agility is a thing. So we're going to change this to agility. It's basically still the same thing. Acting is no longer a thing. We have inspiration as a thing. So we actually have quite a few items here that could kind of mix in with that. Carousing is another one. It's fine. We're going to go with inspiration here. I like this one, that it's the village minstrel kind of pulled you into act with them, and inspiration is kind of like inspiring people, so it's a nice little flavorful thing. It's also not tied to being a child or anything, so that works. Animal care is animal handling now, not animal care, so we're gonna go with that. Nursed a puppy from the brink of death, good. Blather is not a thing, but gossip is a thing, and we've already got a gossip entry, so I'm just gonna type in here gossip. Carousing isn't really a thing. This, as it's described, this would probably be like an inspiration roll, so we can just get rid of this one. Charm isn't a thing, it's manipulation, and I might have a better one up here. We're going to use this one actually for manipulation, the deception entry, because I quite like that one. In fact, what I could do is I could highlight these as I'm going. Put like a little tick next to them or something. So we've used agility, we've used inspiration, we've used animal handling, we've used gossip. We're going to use gossip, I should say. Charm animal can go. Climbing is basically agility. No, it's not. Ooh. Here's the question. What's the difference between agility and... Oh, climbing. I've got climbing as a skill. Right. Climbing is a skill. We're going to leave it. Alright. Cooking is not a skill. So we can get rid of that. But this could be healing. This is a good one for healing. Where your parents have fallen ill, it could happen at any time. So we're going to go with healing as... and we're going to go with the herbs. Let's see, where was the healing thing here? Healing herbs. Got badly hurt in the forest. The herbalist found you and nursed you to health. I mean, that kind of works too. But I like... It feels a little bit more peasant-y to have your parents being sick and you're forced to heal them, and you've got some herbs as a result of that. The climbing thing as a growing up thing kind of is the only way that I could think of making that work. It doesn't really work if you're rolling it later in life, but anyway, that doesn't matter too much. Cool's not a thing. Gotta get rid of cool. By the way, healing is a thing. I need a ticket, so let's go over here. Healing, X. Manipulation. We've got that one now, so manipulation. Disguise is not a thing. And it could be something for stealth. Became great at sneaking around. For your forbidden trysts. We're going to go with stealth for this one. Let's see if I put anything else in for stealth. Did I put anything else for stealth? I didn't. Interesting. Now we can change different clothes to call it something like heavy cloak. Heavy dark cloak. Right, that's stealth. Escapology could be you're escaping. This is the thing. This doesn't feel very like. Why were you imprisoned? Then you proved your innocence. That's like a massive thing. It doesn't really feels a bit too adventure-y, feels a bit too heroic. So we're gonna go down here and look at sleight of hand with a deck of cards where the traveling fool took a shine to you and taught you a few tricks. I like that much better, so I'm gonna put that over here. And therefore we have sleight of hand. And we can get rid of escapology. Fishing is not a thing anymore. Gossip we've already got. Grappling is... Alright, I've got all these weapons skills. Crap, how many have I got? Because I don't really want to do a lot of them. Basic melee can be this one. But I really don't want... Basic range could work as well, actually. But I don't want archery. Hold on. Where are the other skills? There were some other skills to do with... ballistics, for example. Okay, I've taken them out. But there should be. Let me just open this up again. Oh, Jesus, this was a long one. Marksmanship. Okay. Heavy iron ring was meant to be like you put a ring on your finger, so when you punch somebody, you're like almost like an improvised weapon. Although it's just a bit of flavor. You could just, well, yeah. I'm gonna put that up here though. Harvest is gone. Healing I've already copied, have I? Here, healing herbs, 2D, so I can get rid of that one. Intimidation is not really a thing anymore. Jesting isn't a thing anymore. Mining isn't a thing anymore. Orientation is like a wilderness thing. Did I put anything for that? Tracking isn't a thing. Trapping isn't a thing. Weather sense isn't a thing. So I did have something for slings here. So this can be the rabbit infestation I quite liked. As a formative event, so we're going to stick it in here, and we're going to call it basic ranged, and you start with a sling. There we go. So we got basic ranged in there as well. Plant lore could be wilderness. There's quite a few that could be wilderness. Public speaking we don't need, rowing we don't need, running we don't need. We could do the flexible leather shoes for agility. How would manipulation tie into the fellowship cunning divide? It's basically the emphasis is on how you want to do it. So cunning would be deception. You're using manipulation with cunning. It's more like a deception type of thing. And if you're using it with fellowship, it's more like a friendly type of thing, persuading somebody through, you know, more empathetic forms of persuasion rather than maybe trying to lie to somebody or using arguments against them, that sort of thing. So it's more, I mean, it's more just an emphasis, like, that's kind of how we're splitting having skills like deception and a skill like persuasion, is you just have a single manipulation skill and it can go with either one of those depending on how you're doing it. Gossip becomes gossip would almost always be, I would think, would almost always be fellowship, but I'm sure people could think of instances where they would use cunning instead. Haggling would probably be cunning because you're cunningly trying to try and, you know, get the edge on somebody in that respect. Inspiration would definitely be fellowship most of the time. Insight would be, there's an argument for either of them. Cunning probably could work with that. Awareness is a funny one because awareness, I don't really have wits anymore. Logic awareness, and then there you could use awareness with logic, and you could use awareness with cunning. Cunning is also has to do with like perception. So yeah, I kind of like having them untied like this, and I do like having the two kind of social elements to attributes or characteristics. I should really start always saying, or change it to attributes in here and just be done with it. I'm gonna change it to fucking attributes. Why am I calling characteristics? This has moved on so much from Woofrup. I don't really need to stick to that. So let's find characteristics. How many times have I mentioned this word? Characteristics. Characteristic. 38 fucking times. Alright. We're going to go to the first one previous. Equal to your attribute rank. We're going to replace. Next. We're going to replace. We're going to replace. We're going to replace. 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 Swap an attribute. Ooh, a attribute. Okay, I need to change that too. We'll look at that later. Next. Key attribute. One attribute. Primary attribute. Key attributes. Attributes. Attribute. Attribute, 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 attribute. Oh god, I gotta do all these key skills again. I've already done it, so it's okay. Attribute. A space attribute. Roll a attribute. No, roll an attribute. Thank you. Next. Swap an attribute. Next. None. Okay. Done. We're now using attributes, not characteristics. Alright, yes. I just keep doing it all the time myself. It's like, you know what? I'm calling them attributes. I'm going to keep calling them attributes. Fuck it. Right. Slings I've done. Sleight of hand I've copied over. Storytelling isn't a thing. Singing isn't a thing. Swimming is a thing. So swimming can definitely come over here. Pop it in there. Throwing, we're doing basic range with the rabbit story instead. We can delete all these rows. Play the instrument, we don't have any more. I do like the story though. Does that have anything to do with something I'm missing? Not really. Alright. Plant lore, orientation, so, okay. Right. So here we go. Much tighter list now. Okay, so I've got some gaps here to fill in then. I feel like there's more I should have ticked here. How many have I got here? 1 to 46 is 3 for each times 4 is 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm missing one. Oh, swimming. I just did swimming. Right. Okay. So I need another. I'm not missing any gaps here. Nope. So I just need another 6 from this list. So we're gonna go with awareness. We're gonna go with we'll go with ones that aren't actually on this list up here, if I can. We got stealth already, so let's put here. We're gonna put here the ones that are in upbringing. Upbringing has stealth. It has folklore. It has might. It has wilderness. It has tinkering. And as gossip. Okay, so of those, I've already got stealth and gossip. You could be a master gossip or a master at stealth. That feels a little bit odd to me, so I'm gonna get rid of stealth as an option. I think for now. We're gonna turn it gray for now. I don't want to, in case I want it back. I don't want to delete. I don't want to kind of type it back in again. Okay, so what else am I gonna put in then? I mean, hunting could definitely be a thing. You've gone hunting growing up. Investigation could be an interesting one, where you've had something where you've had to investigate something. Insight, definitely growing up, learning to do things like that. Haggle, definitely learning to haggle. And awareness, improving your awareness is something I think I'm quite happy with as well. So let's look at how many we've got here. So some if those are X. Okay, how about that? What have I done wrong? Count if, not sum if. 16. There we go. Perfect. All right. I'm only copying gossip out of all of those. So you can be a master gossip, which works for me. So let's get rid of stealth. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I like that. I like that a lot, being a master in gossip. So let's go with that. So what do we need to add then? We need to add awareness. And we'll put the item thing in here. We're going to add haggle. We're going to add insight. We're going to add inspiration we've already got. Investigation was the one we needed to add. I'll move these around where they sit on the list as well. Might make it alphabetical. I might make it so that the higher you get, the more interesting like items you get out of it, potentially. Manipulation I've done already. It's there. Sleight of hand I've done. Animal handling I've done. Healing I've done. Hunting was another one. Swimming I've done. Oh, I'm missing 2. Oh, 36. 18. I need 18, not 16. Ugh. Okay, so I'm going to have to duplicate a little bit. I don't want riding to be a thing. I don't want anybody having horses. Although, yeah, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really fit in with what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to leave riding out for... Oh, I mean, I've got riding as... Let's put riding in. Why not? And then what's another one? Wilderness could be one. I don't want to give archery as a skill. I think if you've... I think the only people likely to have bows are going to be the people who are fowlers, who are using them, because poaching is a big thing that is frowned upon. And there would be really no need for you to have your own bow that I... Well, no, that's not quite true. Because archery in the Middle Ages was definitely a peasant's occupation. So we'll give archery as one. We'll do archery as one. And that'll definitely be the 65 to 66. You start with a hunting bow. And arrows. Start with 3 dice worth of arrows. Okay. Cool. Writing. Being literate. Jesus. What are you talking about? What game are you thinking this is? Yeah, you're right. You're right. I can't think of how many peasants in the countryside would have been literate though. Like really hardly any. Like tiniest percentage of them. I mean, it would be a good formative event to have literacy as a. But I'm not planning as having literacy as a skill. It's just basically a binary thing. You could write it on your sheet somehow, maybe that you're literate. But the assumption is nobody is. Yeah. Cool. So there's my skill list. I've adapted my upbringing. I've adapted the formative table to implement that now. Still have 18 entries, which is, I think, okay. If I look at the formative event tables from Forbidden Lands and Vaesen, you have a profession and you only have 6 entries. And those 6 entries, basically, you can roll on 3 times. So I actually have... everybody's rolling on these, and there's 18 options. I think that still feels okay to me. So yeah, I'm cool with that. The next thing, I mean, I'm coming up to the end of my stream time. The next thing I'll probably do is just update the careers now very quickly, and I'll put in, I'll update the key skills for each of these, and then I'll probably call it a day. So if people do want to head off, feel free. Or maybe I'll do this. That's quite a manual thing. So I'll leave that and do that later. So I'm going to go up to my to-do list, and I'll say, update careers with new skill list. All right, so add that in there. Tighten up skills. I've done that. I'm not using career skills. I've added a thing about advantage. Trauma tables. Let's have a quick look at that. Because everything else here, social rules, is something that's going to take a lot of time to think about. I want to have some time to brainstorm myself how I want to do that a little bit. Doom also is, I think, might need a whole episode to work on that, or my own time to think about how I want to do that. Overhauling NPCs is something I could do, but I can do that in between as well. It's not a difficult thing to do. And the village creation really is going to take a while. So I think if I look at the trauma tables, just tightening these bits up really changes how characters feel and addresses some of the really big issues with that balance, which was the main thing people were talking about. So the main thing to think about with trauma is there are now higher trauma values. So the big question to ask is that enough? I'm going to do some test rolling right now, and we're going to go with characters that have a 6 which is what I'm considering to be kind of midpoint, not necessarily super high. But yeah, so 6 dice. Use some Forbidden Lands dice here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to see... I mean, I don't need to roll this. I can just look at probability tables. But I always like to do this because it gives me a nice little feel. I got a success, so I would not be rolling for an injury there. I rolled another 6. Wouldn't be rolling for there. I mean, the likelihoods, I got a 6 again. So I'm kind of rolling lots of 6s. I've only rolled 3 times, of course. I got 3 6s on that roll with 6 dice. No 6s on that one. No 6s on that one, etc. So, 6 on that one. So it's like, I don't know, probably like 2/3 of the time I'm probably gonna be rolling 6s. If I check Forbidden Lands, I do actually need to put this in the game, the success table. So where was that? That's by skills, isn't it? Here we go. So 6 dice. I did say 2/3 of the time. So bang on the chance of success with 6 dice. And that's obviously going to be dropping every time you lose health. So the first time you would roll that, if you had 6 to start off with, you would never be rolling 6. You'd be rolling your new value. But 67% is also if you're at like full vitality, and you're rolling for encumbrance or, you know, some sort of toughness sort of roll, you've got a 67% chance of beating it. That's also fine for me. So it starts dipping down when you get lower numbers. So if you've taken 1 hit, you've got a 60% chance of not taking an injury. I kind of like those odds. I'm trying to think about how often the injuries are going to happen. That's what I'm thinking. And the reason I'm saying this is because the first initial values were between 4 and 3 for the people in the playtest, right? At full health. So they're only going to be rolling trauma when they've taken a hit and they've gone down. And those are the values there, really, that they're looking at. 17, 31, and 42% of getting a single success. All right, Magnus, thanks for coming along and watching, and thanks for putting some comments into the documents. I'll have a look at them later. Yeah, I'm rolling trauma just to look at things. So, I think they're still going to happen relatively frequently, even with these increased values. And I think it makes sense to really change how these are laid out. The way to think about this is that your vitality is like your soak, right? You're not actually taking any kind of injuries. So maybe I just need to make some of these less harsh. And not have the harsh values spread out so far, right? Because these are pretty, they're all pretty bad. Especially when you think about 6, 7, and 8 are really 50-ish% of the times you're rolling. Let me just look that up again. 2d6 probability, which is this Dark Fortress one here. So if we look at those, we're looking at, yeah. I mean, it's not 50%, but it's close. And for those of you wondering, we'll just do the quick stats for that. 13.88 times 2 plus 16.66. Yeah, so 44% are just around those 3 values, 6, 7, and 8, which is really high. And we are talking about, like, that means you're going to be getting broken ribs and broken arms. Yeah, so I think I'm going to do what I suggested. I'm going to go with adding some more values in here. So we've got 12 entry values here at the moment. I'm going to add another 6 somewhere and put them in the middle, I guess. We'll just go with it like this and say insert 6 above. And we're going to do a D66 table. And the D66 table is going to be weighted like this. So, whoops. $66, crushed skull. Broken neck is a 65. Crushed knee is a 64. Crushed arm is a 63. Right. 61 to a 62. Then we're going to have 50. How many got left here? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this will be the 6th. Okay, I think what I wanted to do is I wanted to say up here, if you roll 11 to a 16, right? 11 to a 16 is going to be very, very minor. Like, you're getting away with a very minor thing, right? So I'm still weighting the results a little bit, right? Where, yeah, the lower you roll, the better off you are. Then we're going to say a whole full 21 to 26 is also going to be a slightly less of a bad thing. In fact, I might make it 21 to 23 and make this 24 to 26. I mean, I may as well just do this for the whole thing like that. 31 to 33, 34 to 36. Let's see how many I get out of this. 41 to 43, 44 to 46, 51 to 53, 54 to 56. Okay. That's actually this one here, this entry here. So, how many have I got? In fact, let me just undo that. I'm going to undo that again. I'm going to undo that one, and we're going to call this 61, and we're going to call this 62. So all the 60 results are just one result that are going to be on there. They're all going to be relatively bad. So if you roll a 6 and then something else, you know you're in trouble, right? And we can put these down here in the 50s. The 50s are bad stuff happening, like you broke your arm or something like that, but not quite as bad as the 60s. 60s are completely permanent, useless shit, right? I kind of like it like that, I think. And we're separating them into kind of the lower ones into 4 different levels of badness, and I think I can work with that. What do you think? What do you think? So basically, all of the D66 results with 11 to 16 are going to be one relatively minor thing. All of the 60 results are going to have individual entries that are all going to be different flavors of bad. I think I kind of like this, like that. I'm going to move this down so it goes to here. I might change these around a bit, but I'm basically saying none of these are all too harsh, even for 11 to 16. So this would be you're hit, and you have a concussion, right? Whoa, what's happening here with my fonts? Tooth and claw can also be a concussion. Yeah. So minor, mostly cosmetic things would be... I mean, that could even be instead of concussions, because concussion is a little bit different. So we'll put here... Yeah, those are cosmetic, basically. Minor injuries with a complication would be 21 to 26. Serious injuries with maybe permanent complication. Yeah. It's just 11 to 16. I'm kind of not sure what I would put in there, but I'll figure it out. I mean, a broken nose. I think a broken nose is fine. Like, you could break your nose multiple times and still keep fighting. It's gonna hurt for a bit, but it's not that big a deal. Oh, these are 11, not 12. Right. Slash thigh is a little bit more, I think, severe than that. You can get a torn ear, and I think that's fine. A pierced cheek. So cosmetic thing would be grazing cut. for both of these, I think. So you've been cut, you've got, you know, something has hurt you, you're injured, you've got blood is coming out, you're gonna probably have a scar from that, but it's not mortal. It hasn't pierced you, it's not a bad slash, things like that. So I think that's okay. I think that's okay for my 11 to 16. Anyway, I'll fill all this in later. This is really just to look at it for now, how I wanted to try and handle this, and I think I'm happy with that. The torment tables, I'm probably going to leave that as well. Because, again, 7 is the likely result, and around that 6 to 8, I put some thought into how I wanted to handle that. And I kind of like that for the torment tables. The problem is that I have different... I've got a D66 for one and a 2D6 for the other, which feels a bit weird. So maybe just to make things consistent, I will make this a D66 table as well. And yeah, maybe add another example or two. And we've got 11 options here. I can certainly think of another phobia or another mania, or I could take one out even. And let's see, how many have I got here? 3, 4... 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But again, I think the idea here is that you get nightmares. That's a pretty minor thing. I mean, I can do that as 11 to 16, just like I did above. Let's see, where can I move things? I can't really move much. Move this one over a bit. There we go. That leaves me with 10 options. I think Heart Attack would be a 66. Haunted would be, say, 64 to 65. There we go. So if I keep all the 11s and all the 20s together, then I don't really need to redo anything. And I think I'm okay with that. Being anxious about things, I think, is relatively common. Like having nightmares for things, having horrible things happen to you is pretty standard. You're off pretty easily in the grand scheme of things. Having kind of permanent anxiety is a little bit more serious because that can affect you during the daytime a bit more. Like it affects you during the waking hours. Alcoholism, I think, 21 to 33. What happened there? 31 to 33, right. Hearing voices, so basically hallucinations, but yeah. Paranoia, phobia, mania. Okay, I think that works. And again, I'm weighting things similar to this. If you roll a 66, you get a heart attack, you're dead. That's a single result. And again, it's the same percentage really as rolling on a 2d6 table, although this is a flat distribution curve. You think about how it works with here. You have to roll 2 6s. It's only 2.7% of the time you're going to roll that, because you do need to get those 2 6s to land on that result. So even though the distribution for a d66 table is flat, the likelihood of rolling a 66 result is really just a 2.77. The reality is it's 2.77 for every single result on a d66 table, but because of like clumping them a certain way. Anyway, I'm just kind of going around in circles to say I'm kind of happy with that. I'm quite happy with 66 being instant death. Also here with 66 being instant death, that kind of ties it in with other Year Zero games. So yeah, and I don't need to add more entries for the torment table, which I think is quite nice. So yeah, I think this will be a good starting point anyway for the next one. Yeah. Cool. All right. So I'll have to fill that in later. So I'm gonna go over here to my to-do list, add that in, and we're gonna finish for the night because I gotta get up fairly early tomorrow morning. So I can't do a really long night one today. I have to actually register my son for school next year. He's going to school next year, which is kind of exciting. I gotta go speak to somebody about that. So trauma table. No, it's not the trauma table, it's the injury table specifically. Scrub injury table entries with the new number, with a new numbering system. All right. Cool. This is very different, I think, to how Year Zero does things. In that, usually all the critical injury tables have a full. I think they have a full 36 entries, 11 to 66. And I don't think I need that. I think I'm quite happy to have because the main reason for this is you're going to be rolling a lot more often on these on this injury table than you would be with normal Year Zero. And because of that, I think I really want to try and weight that in a way where, well, as the feedback suggested, it's not overly harsh. And because I'm clumping results together a little bit, it also does sort of weight things in a certain way. So if you roll the 60 result, you're kind of a bit more fucked than otherwise. I like that. Cool. Your daughter is properly doing kindergarten. He's been properly doing kindergarten for a couple of years now, so, yeah. Oh, kindergarten in America is probably different than kindergarten here. Kindergarten here is preschool. So you do it from the age of 3. But you can put your baby in kindergarten as well, and it's like they have a creche or like a nursery for babies as well. But it's all still in the kindergarten building. And they just, when they get to the age of 3, they move from the nursery bit into the normal kindergarten bit. But yeah, school starts next year, so I guess that's... Yeah, I mean, I went to kindergarten in America, so I remember how it is. It's called kindergarten here as well. That was a long time ago when I was in kindergarten. Yeah, and I remember it was kind of like official school too, but anyway. Cool. All right, I'm going to shoot off, so thanks very much for watching. Thank you very much for everybody who was on chat. Especially everybody who was involved in the playtesting. I had 3 of you in, I think. I don't think Charles or Joey were in. Joey might have been. Wasn't Joey in earlier? I don't think so. No. So the 3 of you that were in, that was really helpful to have you here to kind of ask you a couple of more in-depth questions about things. Yeah. That was fun. I'm glad you played the game and you didn't hate it. And thank you very much for the feedback. It's God, I'm not choking up. Just losing my voice. The feedback is really helpful. Yeah, as you've seen, and it's all good. I agree with most of it. Just a couple of little things like the career skills. I think we're going to try not doing that. I can always add it back in. It's pretty simple fix later, but I think just adding it as an advancement option is probably enough. So yeah, that's me. I'm going to shoot off. So thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, then please hit subscribe and like the video, and I'll catch you on Thursday with the next whatever. No, yeah, today's Sunday. Shit. Catch you on Thursday with what I'm doing next. I haven't decided exactly what it's going to be yet. I don't think we're doing... No, we're not doing Twilight 2000 just yet. Let me just open my calendar very quickly. Pitchfork. Twilight 2000 is on the 8th. So, yeah. So I might be doing another Pitchfork Dev Diary. I kind of want to get back into the my Mutant Year Zero solo campaign, but I don't know if I'm going to end up doing that on Thursday or not. I have to be in the right mood for that, and it hasn't quite worked out yet. So maybe I'll do that, maybe not. We'll see. But thanks so much for watching anyway, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.